The thing is that your job affects everything. It affects you. If you have an environment that's toxic and you don't feel like your worth is being measured and you feel burned out and you feel like there's not good leadership, who do you think is taking the brunt of that? That is your wife, that is your children, that is your husband, that is your
Amen.
physical health, your mental health, that is you not going to the gym, that is you grabbing fast food on the way home. And I know all this because I've lived this.
Let's talk about what's happening, because I want to back up before we get really into the details of what you do. Let's talk about here we are in almost the end of July 2024. Are we in 24 yet? 23? Sorry.
No, 23, I think still, right?
Wow.
I don't know.
Guess where Dino's brain is? 23. We're coming to you from the future. So what is the marketplace right now in our world? Basically, America is where we're focusing on, right? What are some of the biggest challenges that you're seeing happening in the marketplace for hiring people?
I mean, I think you have to shift back to what happened in COVID, right? I think people went home during COVID and they were living a very specific type of work environment. And they went home and they realized, oh my gosh, my mental health is important. My other parts of my life are important.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're seeing candidates, they want more. They want a community. Like you said, they want a fun environment. The growth piece is important. They want to be the leaders that are not fear-based, where they're, standing behind them and supporting them. And I think that's where you're seeing this challenge, because I think you're seeing a lot of candidates have left the market and they're doing other things. I know a lot of people that have moved away from other things and they're creating their own businesses and entrepreneurs and they're doing new stuff,
Sure.
because their passions are coming through, which is really positive. And then you also have quite a few of candidates who are just very particular now. They're very, very, very particular. If they're really good and they've been with the company for a good amount of time and they have those skills, especially if they're technical, plus they have the people skills, that's like the soft spot for everyone. They have all those, they can be picky. So they're not going to take something that's below their worth. They're asking for their worth. It used to be a situation where candidates were sort of wishy-washy about salary. They were like, no, not anymore. They know what their value is and they expect to be paid that way.
So how do they determine that though? Because, okay, so I know we're living in a space, you say you do a lot in the construction space. I know a lot of the listeners of this show are in the medical field, primarily private practices, right? You're a dentist, you're orthodontist, you're chiropractors.
Right.
I think there are people who will, I know this for a fact, there will people who will come in and say, well, I feel my worth is X, but how, as the owner of that business, do you really quantify that? Because that's just based upon what they're saying, because they have a certain skill set, but they might be a terror once you hire them. They might not want to be a part of the value system that you talked about. How do they determine that? And how does the owner determine that?
So I think the worth piece or the amount there is, they talk to a lot of people. Candidates are having lots of conversations with multiple recruiters. They're talking to different companies. They're always out there looking. And there's a lot of information online. I don't know how accurate it always is, but they do have a lot of information that's given to them. So they do have some idea. As far as the worth, I mean, I think the thing is that you as a candidate need to have a range, right? So, when you're having conversations with owners, a lot of times owners do feel like, oh, position is worth X amount, and typically it is a little bit less than what the market is because they haven't adjusted the market. And sometimes the candidates are a little bit more than what the market is. And I don't think there's ever 100% way. I think the best way to approach that is you offer them based on what you feel like the worth is. And you show them the value of the organization, what the growth looks like, what the leadership looks like, what it looks like in 6 months, a year, where the opportunities are. And a really good candidate who's motivated and hungry sees the value of an organization. Maybe it's not exactly what the amount they want, but they're going to be very aligned to taking that job as well, if you add the other benefits as well besides that piece.
Okay, so you said something just now that I think is really important we need to hit on, which is if the candidate is motivated and hungry.
Yeah.
Now, we've all heard, seen, I mean, I actually have been attacked online about this whole idea of, should I'm not going to do, what's it called? Go above and beyond unless you're going to pay for above and beyond. Well, above and beyond to me is motivated and hungry. Like you want to do a little more. You want to learn. You want to grow. So for number one, for yourself, right?
Right.
Now you got more skills that you can actually put in the marketplace. But number two, because then you're showing your value when it comes time for that raise or that increase, not just that we've been breathing the same air for the last 12 months. So therefore you get a raise, right? So
Right.
how do you, as a great recruiter and as somebody who is that matchmaker, it's kind of like that person that, let's just go real world matchmaking. I believe that if you have to claim you are something, then you're probably not. Like if a guy comes in and is like, well, I am a very gentle and loving person. Well, you're probably, if you got to claim it and you can't show it, or a woman who says, I am a classy woman. Well, you're probably not if you're saying that you're classy, right? So how are
Yeah.
you determining that as a matchmaker?
So I think it's a lot of the questioning when you're having those conversations with
Mm.
candidates. I mean, I've been doing this a long time. I know when something is coming from ego and
Oh,
when something's
nice.
coming from more of a heart aligned place, I would say, I don't know how you would define it. I'm a little woo woo with my spirituality. So, but I think that when you're having those conversations, you're asking about responsibility. So one of the things is you ask a lot of questions about, tell me about past mistakes, tell me about past failures. What happened there? And
Mm.
if it's and it happens where you have a candidate who every single job you're like, why have you had so much movement? And everything is someone else's fault and they don't take any accountability. And but I'm the best. I'm the best. I'm worth this much. That's not a candidate we're going to move forward with. Even if all the skills are there and they check all the boxes, that's the accountability piece. And that's something you can't teach someone. Taking responsibility is an attribute that can't be, taught. It's something that you either are or not. It's the same thing with humbleness. It's the same thing with hungry. It's the same thing with, do you have an abundant mindset? Are you a growth mindset? Are you very scarcity based? Is everything fear based? So I think it's a lot in our questioning when we're
Love that.
having those questions, because we can address that pretty quickly. And those pieces are very important for a company as well, because you can teach things to someone, but there are certain things you just can't teach.
Yeah, for sure. And I can usually teach skill, but it's real hard to teach motivation. It's hard to teach humility, like you're saying. I love that you said that about the questions, because I think too often I've seen where people just get stuck in their same hiring questions, right? To make sure they can quote unquote do the job, but not, and it's not going deeper like that. I have a question where I ask, tell me about a time where you were working on a project with other people and it turned out badly. What did you learn from that? And my cue is always, if they're like, well, Brenda's an idiot and I should have learned that I should have done this alone. And I should have learned that these people didn't support me the way that I need to be supported. It's like, okay, red flag, goodbye.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So I appreciate that you say that, because I think, like I said, I think a lot of times people get stuck in worried what they can and can't ask is a big deal.
Well,
And
yeah.
number two is really asking questions that help unveil who this person is.
Right.
Are there any other, I wrote down here, like you said,
Yeah. I
having
mean,
tips, like what are some other tips about that?
so some other tips we identify is, the responsibility piece is huge, and there's this hungry piece, right, as well, like this motivated piece, like when everyone asks that 5-year plan, but we really ask, like, what is the next step for you look like? If you were to close your eyes and you were to imagine it for me, what does that next step look like? And I have them describe that to me.
Mm,
And if they're like, I don't know, it's really just about money, and it's just, I'm not really unhappy with my job. It's just I'm not making enough. To me, that's a red flag. There's not a
yes.
deeper motivation. And honestly, I've challenged candidates, which sometimes I get hung up on. It's happened, and I challenge a candidate and I say, it's not just about money. So tell me what it really is, because the pain is never just about money. And
Right.
they don't want to tell you what really is. Is it affecting your life? Because the thing is that your job affects everything. It affects you. If you have an environment that's toxic and you don't feel like your worth is being measured and you feel burned out and you feel like there's not good leadership, who do you think is taking the brunt of that? That is your wife, that is your children, that is your husband, that is your
Amen.
physical health, your mental health, that is you not going to the gym, that is you grabbing fast food on the way home. And I know all this because I've lived this,
Yeah, no, totally.
and then being on the other side of it, it's like when we talk to a candidate that is the right match, it is obvious that they are, because
Mhm,
there just isn't the red flags, and it might take time, like you said. I mean,
mhm.
we don't want to submit candidates that don't fit that type of place. And we'll have honest conversation with our clients too. Like, we also hold our candidates accountable. Like, we'll ask them, hey, we really need you to revise your resume. I'm not going to revise it. I know contingent recruiters do that, but I'm not going to touch that. That's not something I'm going to do.
Mhm.
Hey, I need you to revise your resume. And can you get this to me by XXX? Yes. Okay, great. And if that hasn't happened, you give them a warning and they still don't do it, we need to move on, because they're not really that hungry.
Yeah. Yeah. And if they can't comply with one thing you asked, how are they going to do that with the owner? I want to know, you just mentioned time. Okay. So this is I have a big pet peeve with this. So you're going to forgive me if I'm way off base, but you got companies like the Ramsey Corporation, right? Dave Ramsey. They do like 12, 13, 14 interviews. And Dave says, the more you let people talk, the more you let them know. They tell you who they are, right? So their whole thing is they meet with multiple. I actually have a really good friend who just got hired with them, and it took a lot of interviews, right? And then you've got the other extreme where it's like they show up on time for the interview. So we're desperate to put somebody in that spot, so let's just put them in there. Obviously, huge spectrum. Is there for you a good kind of sweet spot for how many interviews and how much time it should take? And I know you're also dealing with in a recruiting situation, there's going to be more time there. But for your average employer, what are you thinking for time wise? Hey, there's no reason to learn how to own your role on your own. If you like that clip, go ahead and click right here for another one. Or if you want to watch the entire podcast, go ahead and click right here. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.